Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Happy Monday, James. How we doing? All good?
Shit. What about you?
Not too bad. A bit. I think your cold from a week ago's managed to migrate across to Portugal. I feel a bit under the weather, but not like. I don't think I'm anywhere near as bad as you were a couple of weeks ago.
I'm nearly there.
It's just a bit wet and dreary here, but no complaints whatsoever. All good, ready to get into it. Obviously, 8 games from the weekend to review, another fantasy weekend to review before we can all take a nice break. I did tune into Andy Let's Talk FPL's stream last night, and it's funny. He always has a ticker in the top corner which shows how long until the next deadline. It was like 380 hours. I was like, that sounds plenty enough to me. It's pretty good. So we've got a couple of weeks now to take our mind off it. And whether you've had a good week, whether you've had a bad week, let's start with the Geordies, shall we? Let's start with the Geordies. Well done.
I don't think, congratulations to Newcastle. And it was absolutely thoroughly deserved. No question about it at all. Si's coming on the Fan View, our Newcastle correspondent, tomorrow. So we will cover the Newcastle aspect of that tomorrow. I think Clayton and I will probably pick up the Liverpool aspect of it on the Clayton and James show on Wednesday. And we've got bits on Patreon focusing on the final this week as well. So I'm not going to cover it too much here. But yeah, congratulations to our Newcastle fans. It's been a very, very long wait. I guess if you're a Newcastle fan listening, it's highly likely this is the first trophy you've seen in your history supporting the club. So very, very well done. It was difficult not to feel pleased for that group of people who create a magnificent atmosphere when it's at their best at St James's and also on the road as well. So well done to them. Shout out to our Irish followers as well. It's St Patrick's Day.
It is St. Paddy's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day if you are listening and tuning in from Ireland. I quite fancy a Guinness now. You got me thinking about Ireland. I don't even know if they sell it out here, mate.
It's a little early in the day for that. What we should probably talk about, Suj, is, as ever, there is bad news and there is good news. Do you want to start with the bad news or the good news?
Bad news as always. Always start with the bad news.
I'll cover my team first then. Absolute shocking disaster for me. 33 minus 8. I think comfortably making it my worst game week of the season. Dropped down to, I think, 63k. Third world problems, admittedly, but a very, very bad week. I bought in Vardiel, Kirkes and Cliver for Hall, Alexander-Arnold and Rodgers. Those 3 players provided me with 7 points. So effectively 1 point worse off from the minus 8. But those 3 players are all playing Leicester and Ipswich respectively in game week 30. So obviously in a stronger position moving forward. Only returnees for me, Castagne, Gabriel, Jared Bowen, Captain Chris Wood. Cole Palmer, no show is problematic to say the least. Although the team's in a pretty healthy position going into game week 30. I'm pretty confident if Palmer was ruled out for a few weeks, I'd probably go and buy Ebe Eze, actually. Again, target the promoted teams heading towards the double of 32. Alternatively, I might move Pickford to Henderson. So it's pretty clear kind of what I'm targeting next. But yeah, as you already alluded to, except for a very, very small group of people who might be really, really kind of broken in terms of the move they want to make is subject completely down to value. And I think 99% of you should be doing absolutely nothing till the FA Cup quarterfinals have been and gone. After that, we will at least kind of know most likely what game week 34 looks like, although some fixtures could obviously stay in that game week. We'll have a better understanding of what game week 33 will look like. But to repeat, as said several times over, we cannot guarantee that fixtures will be announced before the game week 30 deadline. In fact, I think they probably won't be. Let's do the good news. So let's talk about your amazing free hit, which I saw a few people describe on Saturday as the worst free hit ever.
Did they?
I've seen a bit of that, mate.
Okay, fair play.
I
don't particularly like to tune into X too much or what have you. I post a bit.
Well, some of this was in our Patreon community, so.
Oh, really? I don't even look into that. All I would say is, we'll get on to my. Just adding on to what you were saying, James, about not doing anything for the next 2 weeks, and the fact that your 3 signings that you brought in, your 3 transfers in, have good fixtures. We've talked about this for ages. Most people will be set quite well for game week 30 as well. Yeah, you're not really, bar the potential injuries and what have you. I don't think there's many people that are going to need to maybe overhaul, though we have talked about wildcarders in game week 30 and whether or not it will be for some. I'm not going anywhere near that, to be honest with you. But yeah, we'll talk about my free hit.
I have seen one, because I did ask for this after my stream on Friday. I did ask a few people to kind of respond with, right, if you're landing badly for game week 30, show me. And I have seen a couple of teams just like, oh yeah, it actually doesn't look that great. And some of these people want to wild card because then there is great fixtures in game week 30. That's fine. My concern, as I've said several times earlier, is the group who are setting up to bench boost in 33. Is the group that I'm scared for.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I ended up with 70 points, James, which took me from 380k to 250, give or take, just inside the top 250. So I'm very happy with that because you're right, it didn't look great on Saturday. I think I was thinking about this on Saturday, particularly because Haaland had obviously scored and I'd gone against Haaland.
And early.
Yeah.
You were shitting yourself.
You do brick yourself. To be honest, I didn't check the score till half time because I was watching West Ham Everton, so I didn't know what had happened. Yeah, and by then, obviously, Brighton had scored, and it looked a little bit more even in terms of the game, in terms of the stats. Anyway, yeah, I look at the decisions I made, and I try and analyze the free hit on the decisions I made in the FPL community. Someone said this to me the other day about something completely unrelated, and it got me thinking about the FPL community. What would make it a lot better is if people can understand or appreciate that 2 points of view can be right at the same time.
And be different.
Yeah, and be different and be right at the same time, right? If we look at forwards, points for the game week, where are we? Round points. So Erling Haaland was the joint 4th highest point scorer this week from forwards in the game. Therefore, if you were picking a team, and he's only 1 point behind Visser, going with Erling Haaland was the right decision or a good decision. Erling Haaland also only had 1 shot on target, and that was a penalty. Going against Erling Haaland was also the right decision. 2 points of view about something can both be right. I feel like in the FPL community, too often, we can only accept that 1 point of view can be right. Both, it's more than possible for two different opinions.
It's also, and it's human nature that everyone wants to be right. That's human and it's normal.
Yeah. Should I have gone Erling Haaland over Raul Jimenez or Evan Nielsen? Yes. But also, was Erling Haaland lucky in the return that he got? Because it was only 1 shot on target, so gambling against him was right. Yes, because if you just said to me, I look at all of the decisions I made on free hit, we'll go through them. And if I look at them in hindsight with a narrative, bar Bournemouth, who didn't deliver, I'm happy with all of the kind of decisions I went with. So starting with Raul Jimenez, let's go front to back. Raul Jimenez, if you said to me before the game week, Fulham are going to beat Spurs 2-0, I'd be like, yeah, I'm happy to go Raul Jimenez. Nottingham Forest, if you'd said to me Nottingham Forest is going to score 4 goals, I'm going Chris Wood, no problem at all with that. Brian and Bomo, Brentford are going to score 2 goals. Yeah, I'm happy with that, having him within the team. The double Arsenal clean sheet of Gabriel and Saliba, I didn't think Chelsea would score. That was proved out nicely. And I went with Onana in goal. That also came in with a save point as well.
After much speculation during the majority of yesterday, that he wasn't going to play.
He was going to get dropped. And here we go. Well, I had Pickford on 3 points to come in for him. So it was fairly all right with that. Bruno Fernandes obviously was the standout for the game week in terms of captaincy and delivered me the 34 points. Like I said, the only disappointment was Savinho. I wanted one fruity little gamble within the team.
That's fine.
It was, who would I have gone with without Savinho? It would have been Gibbs White or Jared Bowen. Now, Gibbs White, both of them were 5 points, I think. Was Bowen 6 or 5? I can't remember.
5.
So it was 5 points down. But then I'm not going to predict that Savinho is going to go off injured after 58 minutes. Do you know what I mean? If Savinho had stayed on for the rest of the game, could he have picked me up something? Possibly, maybe. Could have been a 4-pointer. I don't mind the fact that Savinho didn't get me anything because it was my punt within the rest of the team. Clivert and Evan Nilsson, disappointing. Yeah, no doubt about it. And Raul Jimenez to get nothing in a 2-0, fine. But I don't think, looking back at it, anything that I thought would happen didn't happen, bar Bournemouth getting beat by Brentford. So fairly happy overall. Obviously, a lot of the points coming from Bruno Fernandes, but that's what happens with a captaincy pick like that. And yeah, happy with it. Shot me up the ranks nicely, and I'm well set. This is like really interesting now. Having 5 free transfers rolling into game week 30 feels like I've got an extra chip, to be honest with you. I've got wildcard, bench boost, and 5 free transfers. If you include the 3 transfers for 30, 31, and 32, James, that's 8 free transfers between now and game week 32. If I only use transfers between now and game week 32 for
Do you mean 33?
No, 32. For Newcastle and
Palace. Plus 31 plus 32 is 7.
30, 31. Sorry, yes, 5, 31, 37. If I only use transfers to get in Palace and Newcastle, well, I've got 2 already in Munoz and Isak. So 4 of my transfers I could use. I'd then still have 3 transfers to reverse them out for doublers in game week 33. And if one of my Palace assets or Newcastle assets is Eddie Howe or Glasner, I don't even need to use a transfer to get them in, do I? Because it's free. So I can actually use 3 transfers to get 6 doublers for 32 and have 4 free transfers for game week 33 to reverse that out to give me a whole set of doublers for game week 33 for bench boost, and then wildcard in 34 to set myself up with cleaning up all of the mess. So
you might be going Arseman this week, yeah?
It's definitely a consideration. The only other time I'll be able to use Arseman otherwise would be 35, 36, 37 or 36, 37, 38. So yeah, very likely. I've got a few helpful injuries / suspensions potentially pending. So Trent is in my squad. So Trent to a Newcastle defender. Easy, because I've got Daniel Munoz there. If Cole Palmer's not going to make it anywhere, then that also makes it very easy to go to Eze or Anthony Gordon.
Gordon's suspended for 30. Back 31.
Yeah, that's fine. So I can hold fire on that. I'll probably go Eze first. Semenyo will pick up his 10th yellow card against Ipswich, conveniently.
Possibly,
which means I can move him on to the other one of Eze or Gordon, who I don't have. So the players that I've got that are out, actually conveniently, I can easily move on to wherever I want to go. And when it comes to it, after that, I'll decide on whether it's Evan Nilsson or Wood that makes way for Mateta. So it's more than likely going to be Evan Nilsson. I think Wood's fixtures still are all right, whereas Fulham, Palace, United, I think Bournemouth are a little bit trickier. But yeah, I feel set. Like I don't really need to panic or make any rush moves. Yeah, and I can work towards 6 doublers in 32 and a lot of doublers in 33 and wildcarding out in 34.
If you went Arseman 30, who do you think you'd go?
Glasner. I think I'd just whack it on Glasner and keep it on Glasner through. But the honest to God's truth is I haven't given it enough thought yet. I would gamble though.
There's not much there for bonuses, so I get the attack in Southampton. And annoyingly as well, if you look at game week 31 at the moment, obviously Palace playing Brighton. Currently Palace are 12th, Brighton are 7th. But with Palace going to Southampton and Brentford going to Newcastle, there's a strong chance obviously Palace would jump above Brentford, taking them to 11th. So then you need Brighton to jump up to 6th. But realistically, that needs one of... Obviously, Newcastle then wouldn't slip up against Brentford. You need City to slip up at home to Leicester or Chelsea to slip up at home to Tottenham. I don't think either of those 2 things are happening.
No.
So you could suddenly be a bit of a damp squib here in terms of that Glasner route.
Yeah, I get that. What I like with the Glasner... I mean, the Southampton first game almost feels like a banker. So it's like, let me get me 6, 7, 8 points, whatever it might be, to start with. At least we'll hit the ground running. and then the rest will be what it will be. So, what I don't really want to do is book in transfers for my Arsenal as it stands at the moment. So, yeah,
Okay.
I think it's definitely on the cards to be 30, 31, 32 Arsenal. Have you given any thought to when you want to use yours?
Well, I'm kind of waiting to see how it lands in 31. If it doesn't land well in 31, I might just leave it to the end.
Right.
Could well be. So, won't be 30 for me because I don't think there's anything that great there. Yeah, Palace Brighton 31. I'm looking at Emery maybe against Forest 31. That's probably likely to be a bonus now. Will be certainly, and basically, unless Villa win at Brighton in game week 30. That's our Clash of Correspondence feature this week as well. Brighton against Villa with Sam Murray, Lee Jackson. So it's probably a 31 decision for me, and it'll either be yes or no, one or the other. If I don't activate it in 31, it will be between 35 and 38.
Right.
Because I'm almost certainly going to wild card in 34. Couple of things before we move on and talk games. Just because you mentioned them, Suj, yellow cards. Just as a reminder, it's the 32nd game. That's a 30-second match, not necessarily game week 32. They have to get through the 32nd game without 10 yellow cards to avoid a suspension. So Sasa Lukic has done his suspension. He'll be back for Fulham. Will Hughes has one more game to go. In terms of FPL relevant players that could impact this, Antoine Semenyo is on 9 yellow cards, as you mentioned. These players are basically in the no-buy zone now, absolutely. Moises Caicedo is not a relevance for a fantasy player, but it may have an impact, for example, on someone like Enzo Fernandez if he got booked. I don't suppose people are adding Chelsea now. Liam Delap is on 9 yellow cards. I don't think anyone's buying, but maybe more a notable one for those that own. Morgan Rogers is on 8. People might be thinking, oh, Villa probably double 33, and we might have that information going into 30 because that fixture is almost certainly City Villa, almost certainly going to get brought forward. It basically has to. Saying, God, Morgan Rogers, could he? Yeah, he could. Joel Linton, if anyone's looking at Newcastle midfielder, might have a few midfield issues on 9. That's worth avoiding. Dan Burn is on 8. Hero yesterday, obviously, but if you're kind of flipping between Burn and Livramento, you might be better off going Livramento at the moment. Those are the only ones, really. I think anyone on 7 is highly unlikely to kind of have a succession of 3 yellows in a row and miss a game. So there's not too many that are impactful at the moment. And also, just a note, right, because it's a regular question I get on some of my streams. Can I make up the difference in rank? Right? If I'm this points behind X person, can I make up the difference? So you've made up on this week on me, Suj. I think my maths is right here. 45 points.
I've scored 70 and you're what? 33 minus 8,
Yeah.
25. 45 points.
Yeah. The difference between us now is still 51.
Oof.
But you can still catch me because look at the weapons you've got with these 5 free
Yeah,
transfers
yeah,
and
yeah.
additional chips. All I've got is the Arseman and the wild card. So you can catch me. I'm
Yeah,
more the way I've dropped now, unfortunately, I'm gonna struggle to stay in the top 100k, I think, is the most likely for me. You've got weapons here.
yeah, I agree. I think it's more than possible. I'm really nervous about the end of the season, game week 35, 36, 37, 38. I really feel like it's going to disintegrate into a bit of chaos because teams are going to not have much to play for, or things like relegation and what have you are kind of going to be settled. At the moment, as it stands, the European spots are quite open. But I think when we get closer to that time, we might find that it spreads out a little bit. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not. I think the end of the season could be quite chaos. Points all over the
Yes, it
place.
could be. The majority of top teams have some difficult fixtures because they play each other, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And there might not be a lot to play for. The other thing with those chasing Europe, obviously depends what happens in the cup, but the likes of Brighton, even Manchester City, Villa, Bournemouth, Fulham, Palace might all be distracted by what's going on with the FA Cup, right?
yeah. That's
Might all
true.
be.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of talk. Bournemouth City play each other, and
I think even more so for them teams other than City, you see the joy that Newcastle fans had yesterday, and
yeah,
it just makes you want it even more, right? Of
and they're capable as well.
course.
They're capable.
Yeah,
That's it. It's not
that
like
FA
it's
Cup is
hopeful.
wide open, wide
Yeah, I really
open.
think so. I'm just looking on live FPL. I'm 58 points behind 50k, 36 points behind 100k. I'm at 250, bang on. So I think 100k is more than doable. 50k would be great. Top 25k is 78 points. That's quite a lot, I think,
No,
to make
I'm
up.
going to struggle to hit that now, mate.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult. But yeah, 50. If I can get to 50k, I'll look back and say it's been a great season. Just play each week as it comes, and yeah, do
I
what you
should
can.
add, by the way, because I know a few people might be thinking, "Oh, James, you didn't have your free hit because of what happens in sort of game week 24, whenever it was." I don't think I'd have played it this week,
Right.
So I don't think I think I would have landed with the same problem.
And if you had played it, you would have captained Haaland.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm,
Yeah, I would have done better. I did look the free hit draft that I put together when we covered it on Thursday scored 61.
right.
Now, I'd want normally a gain of 25 points on a free hit, so I would have had it,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. I have no idea what my team would have scored, but the only returnees I would have had would have been Gabriel and Bowen. So I'm talking about 25
Oh,
points,
it's worked
maybe.
great for you, mate.
Yeah, so it's worked out well. Helped by Bruno Fernandes at the end yesterday. It's funny. It's funny. You look at it and you think Bruno Fernandes saved my free hit. Not really. If they'd played first rather than last, then it would have been Bruno Fernandes set up my free hit. So timing of when the games are played doesn't help. Though it did with Manchester United, only because they had longer to recover from the Thursday game, which was quite helpful.
There's another lesson in that, by the way. The game week's finished when the game week's finished.
For sure. For sure. I don't know if you saw what I put out yesterday, like 13 points from 6 players on
He did
Saturday.
look bad Saturday.
And
He looked
55. But I've had it time and time again where after the first day you think this is a disaster and it always kind of works its way to come round. So
and the other way, you'd be like
and the
on
other way.
60 points from 6 on a Saturday night. I've got 5 to go, and 5 on the Sunday will get you like 7
Nothing.
points. Exactly.
It happens. So yeah, don't panic and don't get too high or too low depending on what happens. Should we talk about some of these games?
Let's do it.
Some might deserve more conversation than others. Starting with the game at Goodison. Everton won, West Ham won. We both predicted a 1-1. And it ended up being a fair result, really. I think both teams were quite happy with the 1-1. Do you know what I was pleasantly surprised by before the fixture was the talk amongst West Ham fans and channels around showing Moyes respect and giving him a round of applause in the 61st minute and kind of
it just all he is.
No, I think might be his age or something like that. I think it was his age, and I didn't expect to see that. And then he was obviously quite kind and respectful in his pre-match comments in the press conference, and it just all felt a little bit friendly and pleasant.
That's all right,
and let's just have a nice game. And 1-1, you're happy, we're happy, let's all go home. It didn't feel particularly competitive, I would say, James, is the way I would describe it. As a result, I think it bled into the match.
Okay.
It was nice, it was fine, but it didn't feel particularly like there was anything right. None of us are going up or down in the league table as a result. I mean,
it's a nothing football match with respect to the two teams, right?
Yeah, it wasn't an awful game. It was neat and tight. I think both goals were good. I think Soucek took his goal really well, and I think Jake O'Brien is poaching in the box. It was good positioning, and he took it really well. I think both goals were fine. They were late in the game that added a little bit of interest to it. If it had finished 0-0, it would have been just put down as a ball draw, to be honest with you. But yeah, both teams were okay, making slow progress under Potter, and Everton obviously completely different under Moyes. Both will be reliable. I think both teams will give you bits and pieces as we get towards the end of the season without setting anything alight. Jared Bowen's still the standout from a West Ham point of view. I don't know if I'd pick an Everton player as a standout, like who as a fantasy asset standout.
No, it's by the way, check out James Tarkowski's block on the equalising goal. I know he doesn't touch it, but it's a really, really pivotal role that allows Gay to get round the back. And yeah, Jake O'Brien might be one people look at the end. I think for those wildcard in 34, 35, you'll be drawn to look at Everton defensively because you look at them last 2 home games, which are the last 2 ever home games at Goodison Park. And you see Ipswich and Southampton, you think, If I can work a little rotation here, that'll work quite nicely. So I think we'll look at them at the end. If you own any Everton at the moment, you're looking to sell, aren't you? Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, Man City, Chelsea is what you're looking at. Now, with me, who owns Pickford, I'm looking going, yeah, I'm going to Henderson. That probably improves things for me over the next couple of weeks. But will it be enough if I've got another problem like a Palmer? I'm going, nah, I'm just going to stick it out with Pickford under that sort of circumstance. But I think, yeah, if you've got Everton defensive like that, if it's a starter, which Pickford would be, I think you're looking elsewhere. If you've got Beto, you're looking elsewhere. If you've got one of the defensive ones like an O'Brien or Mikalenko, you're probably looking to hide it and just leave it on the bench unless you're setting up towards a bench boost. Obviously, a number of people are going to wildcard 31, so it may be just the case that you bench this week. But realistically, yeah, you're not adding Everton going to Liverpool. I guess an outform Liverpool now, is it? Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest, City, Chelsea. You're not adding at the moment. For West Ham,
Me too, but again, like you said, it's hiding. For me, I've got Mikalenko. For me, I'm hiding on the bench. I'm not. It's not a fire I need to put out.
yeah, I think with West Ham, obviously Wolves away next. If people wanted to take a 1 week punt on a Bowen or something like that, like it's fine.
It's just Bowen. There's no something like that, James. To
But
be
I
honest, with you,
think
for my opinion,
no, but I think if you, I'm just thinking of 1 week punts here for 31. I think people will still be drawn to look at something like Palace or even something like a Harvey Barnes who will get one more game and then probably come out the team, for example. You'd probably be looking something more like that as a 1 week punt. Bournemouth, Liverpool 31-32 doesn't scream. Obviously, if Brighton beat Forest in the Cup, good chance of that double 33, then they'll be on radar. But I wonder if West Ham might be the last decision for people now, like add the right one in 33. Certainly, if people need coverage for just this week, if they wanted a defensive one, is it Wan-Bissaka, Suj?
well, look, we played a back five for the past few games. The left side of the back five had been Creswell with Ollie Scholes, the young kid, in front of him. That completely changed to Debo, Mavropanos, and Kilman being the central three. Creswell dropping out and Emerson coming in. If you said to me Emerson was going to start, I'd say I'd pick Emerson over Wan-Bissaka because he does take some of the set pieces. But the fact that there's been rotation and change on that left side doesn't give me confidence that Emerson will stay in. Wan-Bissaka is a safer pick, I would say. Yeah. Emerson's probably the better asset, but you can't rely on him keeping his place now.
He's not good enough, though, to take the chance, is it?
No, I don't think so. The upside is not big enough. Like, look at their attacking returns. They're not prolific. So Wan-Bissaka is your safer bet. Yeah.
I think for those wildcarding this week who have decided to do so and really do want to gamble on this 33 prospect, probably please put Areola in. Because if you are bench boosting 33, if they don't double, at least you've still got Southampton at home.
Yeah, agreed.
And there's no reason to think we say him and Fabianski pick up the odd injuries, and they do, but I don't think you can think that might happen. Areola is a perfectly fine pickup if you're on wildcard, I think.
Yeah, I think when I get working towards bench boost, he will be my second bench goalkeeper because who else is there that's at that price that might be available? Jose Sarr, maybe. That's about it, really. So I think Areola will end up being my bench boost goalkeeper when I get down to it. So yeah, in agreement with that. So talk about Ipswich 2, Nottingham Forest 4.
Yeah, I think unfortunately that's doomsday now for the Ipswich and the other two teams at the bottom. I think it's awful for the league that we're in mid-March and that's over.
But they've not been good enough. They've not
miles off, aren't they? I mean, there's every chance they're going to be the worst ever promoted three combination-wise, even worse than last year's three in terms of total points.
I look at Southampton have been awful. Leicester can't score goals for love nor money. So they've kind of Southampton conceded so many goals. Leicester can't score any goals. Ipswich aren't terrible either, but just don't do enough to get any results.
Yeah, but defensively around the box, they're nowhere near good enough.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's almost frustrating because you want to see a competitive league. I mean, look, they've managed to score 2 goals here, but at the point that the game was already
Forest
lost.
Are making changes, yeah.
Yeah, the game was already lost. So yes, it wipes out some clean sheets, but there you go. Milenkovic versus Ola Aina. I almost think I went with Aina because of the price. Like I had the money to go up to Aina.
This is the guy who didn't pick Haaland and left like 9 million in
No,
the bank.
but I'm like Aina's attacking threat in open play, getting down the wing versus Milenkovic on set pieces. I felt like the set piece threat wasn't as big as the open play threat. Open play, you got 90 minutes. Set play, how many corners are they going to have, or free kicks are they going to have?
Big chances like he has, right?
Well, and this is exactly it, right? So lesson learned. I think sometimes with defenders and attacking fullbacks, yeah, maybe the set piece threat might be something to consider more. And he's returned really well here. As for Elanga, it was no way near radar for free hit at all. So I've got no regrets on not going anywhere near him.
I think there's possibly a lesson here in when you're choosing between a centre back and a fullback. I think as fantasy managers, we want to pick the fullback quite often. It's more exciting, isn't it? Right? We know Milenkovic is a big threat from set plays. I would say probably the lesson here is quite often when it's for a team that's not ball dominant, and Forest aren't. I said to you, they'll do Ipswich on the counter, and they had far less of the ball again at the weekend, that we pick the centre backs. I think about this and I reflect on things like Burnley in the past, Brentford's centre backs versus their fullbacks. I think Everton's centre backs versus fullbacks. O'Brien is a little bit different because he is a centre back playing fullback essentially, right? So he still gets involved in the aerial stuff from set plays and stuff. But I think it's that if you've got a team that's not ball dominant, go with centre backs rather than fullbacks. That's my take on it, because he uses set pieces like a weapon and stuff as well. Anyway, the big takeaway out this match, the couple. One, it's 4 blanks in a row for Chris Wood.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what's your thoughts? Because four games without a goal, I think he has got an assist within those 4 games, isn't he? I think he has returned.
Probably.
But
it's also been a tough run of fixtures before this one. And he had opportunities at the weekend, right? Particularly the one around about the hour mark on his left foot. I think there's plenty of them he's put away this season. So, no, I don't look back on the weekend and think, oh my God, I made a mistake capturing Chris Wood. Not at all, mate. Same as what you said earlier, if you told me Forest get 4, I'm doubling down on that, mate. I feel like I made the right choice. So that's absolutely fine. There might be a little bit impact of Elanga being closer to him. What I mean by that is, so Elanga played a more central role against Manchester City, and we didn't know if it was a one-off or not. They did the same at the weekend against Ipswich, where he's almost played like a second striker, and is allowed to go and float into wide areas as per his first goal, which is brilliantly taken with his left foot coming in off the right-hand side. But by virtue of Elanga being a more central role, you are taking one of the wide threats away. And a lot of the returns for Wood will obviously come from delivery into the penalty area. So Elanga's speed could draw people away, but I do think you're losing something in terms of delivery from the right-hand side from Wood. Might have a little bit of a negative impact on him. He's not in the, oh my God, sell bracket at all. But I guess there might be, when we hit 30, there might be a group of people thinking, I would like to go from Wood to Mateta, for example. And I wouldn't hate that, right? I'm sitting there with both, right? So I'm not doing anything about it. But I think that would be the one where there's a little bit of temptation.
I think the Wood owners might fall into 2 camps. People that have owned him recently that have not had the returns, that are frustrated and really annoyed, or people like myself. I had that good run before. When you've had a good run and you've had points, you can kind of stomach a player a little bit more because you've tasted good with him. He's on the chopping block for me, James, going into game week 30, but not for Mateta.
Go on.
Erling Haaland.
It's so funny.
Erling Haaland. I'll free up money from Trent and
Palmer if injured.
Palmer. Well, possibly Palmer anyway. And then it gets me up to Erling Haaland.
Tottenham, Suj.
Who? Palmer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
I ain't selling Cole Palmer unless he's injured. I can tell you that now.
No, I can even find I don't need a huge amount of money else. I've got 2.2 in the bank. Downgrade Trent somewhere. I can find a way of trying to make it work. But yeah, I think Wood is on the chopping block for me for Erling Haaland, particularly if I knew that Erling Haaland would double in 33. Then I'm working towards where I was going towards anyway. So yeah, I think. He's on the potential chopping block for me, but yeah.
I wouldn't fret about it too much. It probably bottom line. Look, United at home next is obviously not terrible. Everton at home 32 is fine as well. But I guess most people would like to have Isak and Mateta in 32. So factor that into the thinking a little bit. Ilanga's really interesting, right? Because this new position, as seen at the weekend, can certainly get something out of him. I think it's interesting that's now taken him to only 5 league goals for the season. He had, I think, on 10 without scoring. So for those who went Hudson-Odoi over Elanga, we said it was a kind of a bit of a coin flip. I wouldn't beat yourself up about it if you made that sort of choice. But he now needs very, very serious monitoring. Particularly, I think, for those who are sort of short of chips or maybe already used their wild card. Their run till the end of the season is pretty good ongoing. He's obviously at a value point that you wouldn't necessarily have to play him every week as well. That needs very, very serious monitoring. He could be a really dangerous fantasy asset if he continues in that position to the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, look, if Morgan Rogers, for example, gets himself his 10th yellow and is suspended for 2 games, he's at that same price point.
Yeah.
Becomes a very nice sideways move potentially.
The consequence, of course, of this little adaptation is a deeper role for Morgan Gibbs-White, who did get an assist again once he moved on later, higher up the pitch, once Forest had made changes later in the game. If you've bought Morgan Gibbs-White, I'd be monitoring that as a little bit of a concern at the moment. And if you did want to buy a Forest midfield asset at the moment, it would definitely be Elanga. And if you do want to invest in a defensive one, I'm excluding sales from this conversation, it's fine if you want to go there, then it's Milenkovic if affordable. If not, Nico Williams.
Yeah.
Williams is worth the saving versus Aina.
Yeah, I agree. Now, well, I say I agree. I agree because I bought Aina and he didn't get me any points on the free hit, so screw him.
That the second goal Elanga scores, which is like straight through the middle of Ipswich, where obviously Wood is a bit of a distraction. What you got to realise, the difference now to what that was before was Wood's going up for that header, and you probably in the past you'd have had maybe Gibbs White running off him, but possibly nothing. This now with Elanga is the anticipation to run beyond and get himself into central areas. It's got to be monitored very closely.
Yep. Let's talk about Man City 2, Brighton 2. Obviously, Marmoush being a headline that picking up the goal and an assist. I'm very interested in your thoughts, James, on Marmoush versus Haaland. Like I've just mentioned there, Wood to Haaland this week versus Leicester, and that would mean sacrificing Cole Palmer. I could keep Cole Palmer and go Marmoush instead. And obviously the game played out like 10 big chances in the game, 6 of which fell to Brighton. The XG is like just over 2 for Brighton, 1.72 for Man City. Remember, that includes a penalty. So they've out XG, they've doubled the open play XG of Man City there. More shots, more big chances, obviously less possession, but you expect that. I think I predicted this as a Desmond Tutu, I think, and it's played out. And Brighton are in good form at the moment.
They very much are.
I have no eyes on any Brighton assets at all whatsoever.
I think you should do.
I think I should do too. Tell me first. Tell me Marmoush or Haaland for Leicester and beyond, and then let's talk about Brighton as well.
Look, is Marmoush worth the saving versus Haaland? Yes, if he's going to play, and if you don't intend to captain Haaland.
Well, I was going to say, is Marmoush captainable in your opinion?
I mean, is he? Yeah, but also you ain't gonna. The last 2 weeks we've known through leaks that he wasn't going to start in 28, and then we knew that he was going to start this one. And I think there's a few people would have put him in on a free hit very late under that circumstance. But you're not going to get the information going into 30 because it's on the Wednesday and the deadline's the Tuesday. Then in 31, they're at Manchester United on the Sunday. You're not going to get the information. So my opinion would be that City's strongest team has him in it. I mean, you look at the striking ability on the goal he scores. That's ferocious, the way he hits that. He's got beautiful technique in his striking. His goals record at Frankfurt in the first half of this season was unbelievable. If Haaland wasn't there, it's possible that we'd be queuing for it. Right? Because he would definitively play, I think, if Haaland was unavailable for whatever reason. So is Marmoush worth the saving on him, and can you captain him, say, in game week 30? Yeah, but you already know what the risk is that comes with this, right?
Well, the thing is, I know for a fact, if I had Marmoush in my team, then I'm captaining Salah. If I had Haaland in my team, there's a debate whether or not I'm going to captain Salah and Haaland. So I wouldn't captain Marmoush over Salah, but I would captain Haaland over Salah.
Also, they play at Bournemouth in the FA Cup quarter final 3 days before
A few
Leicester.
days before.
If Marmoush plays under than 10 minutes and it goes to extra time, you're shitting yourself about Leicester at home, aren't you? Thinking
For sure.
they're probably saving him for Man United on Sunday. Then it becomes like a no-go. Right?
Correct.
So even information for things like that in terms of buying players is a good example. Teams are playing in the cup. You really, really shouldn't go and invest in early if you can avoid it.
Would you not think if Haaland played 110 minutes, they'd say actually rest him
No,
against Leicester and roll him out against Manchester United and play
no,
Marmoush?
not really. No,
I agree with you.
it's
I'm just
also
asking the
adjustment into a
question.
new. It's adjustment into a new league, right? And plus, we have the history of looking at Marmoush and knowing he was benched at Nottingham Forest.
Yeah.
Haaland, essentially, we had this discussion in the past. We need to get over this concern with him. He basically plays nearly
Yeah.
always.
Yeah.
So I don't think you would have that concern with him. Yeah, look, if you knew Marmoush was going to play, yeah, he's worth the saving. I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, right? Yeah, sure, he scored the penalty, therefore his underlying from the weekend looks fine. But without the penalty, there's nothing else. Was he worth the money? No, not really. I'm sure those who went there and captained him are fairly happy with their returns. But those who did it and took Salah out to do it,
Hoping for big stuff from Leicester this week. Otherwise, it's going to be painful for
well,
sure.
you'd have to say at the moment, game week 30, if the game week was starting tomorrow, who would you captain if you could just have any player? It's Haaland again.
It is for me. It is. Yeah. I completely disregard like what I did on free hit and what I would do in game week 30 is completely down to Leicester versus Brighton. Like Haaland, I have no issue with Haaland. I thought Brighton would give him a tough game, and that's why I didn't want to go Haaland. But Leicester will not give them a tough game. We've seen it again yesterday where they got rolled over. So, and those that went Gvardiol, there's this narrative, and I think I am inclined to agree that when Doku plays ahead of Gvardiol, he is less of an attacking threat. Doku started the last four.
But I think there's also an impact of whoever plays right back. And at the moment, City don't have the capability to play like an Akanji at right back and then form their back three to let him really push on. So you're asking the right back to play a very withdrawn role, or the other way round, it will be what they did against Chelsea in the league. Is play a proper flat free midfield that allows him then to push really high. So they've got to have a strategy off the ball that can protect if he is being pushed forward, right? And we know how vulnerable City are off the ball. I think with him, it's something that could change. There isn't anything to be wild about. I said this going into this week. I'm getting him in because I think the fixtures are great. You know, the next one's great in 30. There isn't any reason to think he won't play at the moment because they don't have enough different options. There's nothing else really that can play left back bar Rico Lewis. There's nothing particularly to be concerned about, and the situation may change. Make no mistake, City have got really good fixtures now, certainly at least up until 37, 38. And they're capable of winning every game over this period, by the way. There's a case to be made that the toughest game City will have had left was on Saturday against Brighton, because their form since the 7-0 at Nottingham Forest has been absolutely brilliant. And they've got themselves right in contention. And Baleba should have won the game for them. Absolutely should have won the game for them. They're getting players back fit. Webster's kind of dived in on Marmoush for the penalty, but has been doing quite well at centre-back alongside Van Heck. Tariq Lamptey wasn't back for this one, picked up an issue in training, so Hinchwood stayed at right back. The reports I heard is that Gomez played quite well in midfield alongside Baleba. Estupiñán's been a miss for them for a lot of this season. Looks a bit more secure at left back. And offensively, you said they're not on radar, Suj. Well, if they end up doubling in 33 and they've got Leicester in game week 32, and you're
It should
someone that's
be.
sitting there with 5 free transfers going, I can get to Newcastle Palace players quite easy. I'm telling you, when you get to 32, you'll be looking at Mitoma, João Pedro, and Minter, particularly.
Whatever I go with, I'll miss. But they spread them around. Look,
It's probably true.
It's Ruta this time round that has picked up, and obviously Hinshelwood's a midfielder who's picked up the assist here. Estupiñán is back on, like, he is a fan favourite from back in the day. Whether or not it's one that will tempt, I'm not sure. Yeah, I
Probably
agree with
not.
you.
Probably not.
I'd probably end up doing the it won't be João Pedro just because there are other forwards like Isak, Mateta, Haaland, Marmoush will be all ahead because of the double the week before. Let me see, but I'd probably end up going Mitoma as the safest, simplest, easiest option.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think they need monitoring. Probably not at Steam Into this week, and we'll get Sam's opinion on COTC this week. But yeah, with Villa's away form this season, you wouldn't back against Brighton, turning them over in 30. Then it's the big rivalry game, 31. Then Leicester. Then as said, possible double if they beat Forest in the cup. So yeah, they're one that could quickly become on radar. I think you need to keep them in mind, Suj.
There's a big gap between Forest and Chelsea now, third to fourth, 5 points there, but only two from Chelsea down to Brighton in seventh. So they could easily, obviously, Newcastle within that have a game in hand. But yeah, Chelsea lose their next game. Oh, sorry, did you say it was Spurs? Okay, but Brighton could leapfrog them and jump up to fourth, which will be incredible. Can you imagine that? Forest and Brighton jumping into the Champions League spots. I'm here for it.
Well, Brighton are a form horse. We shouldn't rule them out. Reminder, they have lost 6 football matches all season.
And then Newcastle win
That's
the
it.
Carabao, Bournemouth win the FA Cup. I'm here for it. Let's do this. Good. Let's talk about Southampton 1, Wolves 2. Strand Larson was not mentioned by many at all, and he's picked up 2 goals here. He would have been picked as the default because Cunha's out and I want a Wolves forward. He was the one to go to, but his ownership would have been nothing. It's 2.7% overall. So what it is live, it's going to be low.
There's definitely a few would have gambled Larson on free hit because you're
Yeah,
targeting Southampton and
yeah,
that's
understandable.
perfectly understand. Look at me,
Yeah.
I went on Kunku because of Southampton and Leicester, right? He looked wank, right? But I got a nice little haul against Southampton, and that's obviously what's happened with the Larson owners here. My big takeaway from this, having not watched a lot of the game, Wolves had 5 shots
All game
all game
and scored from 2 of
against
them.
that Southampton. Their XG was 0.36. And it is worth saying, I do not want to call Larson owners lucky, but the 2 goals are extremely soft. Ramsdale, I think, should do better on both of them. But there's also an interesting aspect on Larson. I think he's got the best conversion rate in the league.
Shots
Shots
or
to
XG conversion.
it's either shots to goals or shots to shots on target. Like Cunha's had like about 50 more shots on him this season.
Right.
But his actual returns, like he's only having shots when he's obviously in really
Clinical.
good positions, right?
Yep.
And he's fine. If the delivery is good for him, like his aspect in terms of the header, particularly on the first half, his movement in front is really good. I think it's quite central and the goalkeeper should do better. And the second one's really soft, but he picks out the corner. Fine. Well done. And their fixtures are good moving forward. So I think if you invested in him, i.e. bought, you're probably not running away from that at his value with some good fixtures to come. Although it's worth saying West Ham have improved a lot defensively under Potter. I think in terms of buys, people will have only bought him. I mean, it was primarily free hitters went with him, or people will have invested in Eight Nori or
Hey, Nori.
Agbadu.
And
Agbadu as
Agbadu
well
because
because
cheap.
he's 4.
Yeah.
And a few maybe on Jose Sarr. Now, again, the fixtures are good enough. You're pretty happy to play them. But what I would suggest is if you've got better options, please do so. Like if you're sitting, oh, Kirkers or Eight Nori, have a bit more faith in a better
Kirkers.
football team because ultimately, if it wasn't for the bottom 3 being so shite, Wolves would still be in massive trouble here. Now, they've done well under Pereira, but there's a huge distance still from Wolves to the next set, right?
Yep. Yep.
Wolves are highly likely going to finish 17th. Cunha, as it stands, will be back in game week 31. We've not heard anything to the contrary. I don't know if we might over the international break. There was some speculation he could get an extension on a ban. I probably wouldn't dive into Wolves this week. I would not be surprised if you went there and won, Such, at all.
Yeah, I mean, we should be going with the mentality that we're going there to win the game of football. I mean, Southampton racked up 3 big chances. It's not huge, but over they out XG'd Wolves, but still came away with nothing.
And for those who did maybe take a little bit of a punt on someone like Menetzi, who was getting a few mentions on my streams because people were looking at
Oh yeah,
sort of working at Rogers' value. Yeah, I'd be kind of having glances quite quickly at the likes of Elanga.
Mm.
if you could switch that about. I don't think he'll get many returns. He's ultimately a midfield player that's been playing a little bit more advanced. And when Cunha does return, that could impact his minutes. Bellegarde is the one that's been playing quite well recently. I'm not suggesting anyone does that either.
Yeah, none of them fill you with any kind of inspiration to want to go and chase that. No.
No.
Let's talk about Bournemouth 1, Brentford 2. Thought Bournemouth would win this. I thought it might be like a 2-1 or a 3-2 to Bournemouth. And they did have 3 big chances in the game in 17 shots, but didn't amount to anything in the end. And Brentford were really well, really good away win for them.
Yeah, I think the data can tell us one thing. I watched all the game on Saturday night. I thought Brentford were deserving winners. I thought it started really well. Then they obviously had the handicap of going behind to Vitaly Janelt's second own goal in the last 6 game weeks or so off his back, I think, because he also had the one against my team back in February. So that setback, then scored from a set piece. Beautiful leap by Johan Visser. He gets really high, although questionable on Bournemouth's setup and the goalkeeper on the goal. And also questionable in terms of Bournemouth and how they defended the long throw. You can't let long throw bounce in the box. And Norgard arrives and takes it really well. You've got a really settled team, Brentford. They might benefit from having Henry and Hickey involved for the rest of the season. I think they're too far off to be realistic about trying to get themselves involved in Europe. 41 points from 29 games. They'd have to have one hell of a run. And when I look at them next, Newcastle away, Chelsea at home, Arsenal away, despite this very good result, I think if you've got Brentford assets, your eyes are turned to somewhere else. And that's not to suggest that Boomo owners should bin. We know his capability. But I think even more so, if you've got Visser, again, you've got eyes looking at a few others this week, like Mateta, haven't you?
Yeah, even if you don't own Isak or Evan Nielsen with Ipswich, if we knew that they would double if they do all right in the FA Cup, would dare I say Man United at home? There are plenty of other options.
You said.
Marmoush is more interesting for me. Yeah, I think Visser is not of interest. Boomer will just tick along. He's kind of he's all right to have there if you've got other problems to think about, and people might have a lot of value tied up in Boomer as well. Is the other thing with him.
And it's highly likely you'll want him for the end bit.
Yeah. So Boomer, I'd probably just leave. Visser can move on for sure. I'm really hoping Semenyo gets his 10th yellow card because it will make it an easy solution for him. He doesn't return. He's so annoying. Like, I would rather have Tavernier or Clivert and probably even Dango, even though he's not even in the team, than Semenyo. Like, I never feel like I get anything off him.
Regular listeners will know, I really like Antoine Semenyo as a player. I have to make that categorically clear. I think there's every chance, with all due respect to Bournemouth, that a club of bigger size may even go in and buy him this summer. And I think that's fine. I think he's a very, very talented footballer. I speak about the shooting with power all the time. Even the effing header, Suj, from Clivert's cross, he's like, he had to power the header with everything he had, and it comes back off the bar. So look, he was close to a return. And the good news is, if you own Antoine Semenyo and he's on 9 yellow cards, he's good to go for Ipswich at home, so you're not doing anything about it. But he definitely now falls into a category where that's a no-buy, I think, because of that afterwards. Unless, of course, again, if you know your wild card in 31 and you want to get Semenyo for 1 week because you've already got Clivert, great. But I think it became quite clear in the build up to this that Clivert was worth paying the extra for. And I don't feel different on that at the weekend. Again, it was Clivert created the chance for Semenyo's header. And I think the second best offensive one to have at the moment would be Evan Nielsen, despite the blank at the weekend. Semenyo is now kind of third on that list.
Do you know, James, let's play a little game. Where does Antoine Semenyo rank in shots on target for this current league season?
Oh, he's in the top 5.
Shots on target.
Yeah, I think he's in the top 5.
He is 19th, James.
Oh, is he really? Where does
he rank for shots off target, James?
He could be first.
He's first, James.
Wow.
Yeah, he's first for shots off target and 19th for shots on target. Frustrating.
Yeah, but the one thing is with him,
he'll keep trying. He'll keep letting them off.
I told you when I bought him in December, I felt, even though it was against Tottenham, I felt instantly like it wasn't right. It just
Mm.
didn't feel right to me. But I guess the volume of shots that he had, you do feel at least like he's involved. And I suppose if he looks up from 25 yards out, you've got that expectation of what could happen next. But ultimately, many of his shots are low quality chances, right?
Off target. This is
Is the
it. This is the
reality.
problem. Yeah, pot shots. So
Defensively, Kepa will give a few solutions, but the way he came for that cross would probably put people off a little bit. Kirkes obviously with another attacking return, good asset. It's probably a little bit expensive now, 5.2 for those who've not already been there, but a good asset, and they've got good fixtures to come. Obviously, the next one is great. On Dean Howson, some would have noted that obviously Rojo and Senesi are basically back fit. Neil Grover, our Bournemouth correspondent, has said there is no reason to take Howson out of that team now, and I
he's just
agree.
he's
Too good.
too good.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
So
he's too good.
I wouldn't be concerned about it. I probably would have enough doubt to make me not want to buy him at this stage, but I definitely think the owners should not be concerned at all.
Good, good. James, there were no clean sheets on Saturday. There were three clean sheets in all of the games on Sunday, starting with Arsenal 1, Chelsea nil. I didn't watch much of this, but the general feeling that I've seen from highlights and what people were saying was that you've got an Arsenal team with no attack and you've got a Chelsea team without their best player, and it definitely wasn't a top four, top of the table, end to end, packed full of chances and shots. Bit dull. Arsenal are a bit of a machine to grind out results like this, and Chelsea, despite Arteta, Arteta was saying it, they're the best attacking team in the league.
Yeah, that was weird.
All right, I think maybe is he trying to big up his own players for keeping a clean sheet against them or something? I don't know.
I think so, but it also came off as a little bit of a dig against the team that scored 16 more goals than Chelsea this year. A little bit, which is
Yeah,
Liverpool,
maybe.
obviously.
I mean, Pep does this quite often, where he really bigs up opposition teams. Sometimes they're really good at this, really good. I think it's almost to get his own team up than it is anything else. I did find it bizarre, but Arsenal 1-0 to the Arsenal, as they say.
Yeah, like, it's an important result for Arsenal because they've obviously had a few slip ups recently, and I think there was a consciousness of what's behind. I don't think Arsenal needed to be worried about that at all, and I'm fairly certain they'll finish second from here. I don't think they're going to make up the gap. 12 points to Liverpool with 10 to play. I just think it's too much, despite some concerns, let's say, about Liverpool following the cup final yesterday. Ultimately, these two teams were both without their best attacking player in Saka and Palmer, respectively. And also, I think on top for Chelsea, this has been done over to death. Nicholas Jackson is really important to them. And the likes of Nkunku and Neto, if you punted it for the likes of Southampton, Leicester, it's absolutely fine. You don't want that now. Even like for Tottenham at home, I know jokes about it. But if Palmer's fit, the bus team at the moment I've got is Nkunku on the bench. They're not going to offer you enough. And Kunku, I think if you give him the chance in front of goal, fine, but I don't think he gets in the positions. Neto is a good player we like. For me, he's a wide player. I don't like this him playing as a nine at the moment. I realise Chelsea have some squad issues, which is why it's happening. But he's never been someone, even when we spoke about it for fantasy, he's like, oh, look at Neto, he's got 5 assists in 6. He's more that, isn't he? He'll have a run of like creating stuff for you. He's never been a high goal scoring volume type of player. So they feel really absent in terms of what they're providing at the top end. Now, look, Palmer, Jackson might both be available for game week 30, and then it's problem done. But we should not be surprised that this was a low scoring, sounds like it wasn't a great affair. And I think, you'd said sort of like 1-0 Arsenal, did you? I'd went with
1-0
1-1.
yeah, I went with 1-0.
Everyone thought it was
Low
going to be
scoring.
low scoring, and you could read that, right? So Arsenal have some more good fixtures coming up. Fulham, Everton, Brentford, Ipswich, and Palace is a good little cluster for them. I imagine the defensive assets will continue to do quite well. So if you've got your likes of Gabriel, Raya, Saliba, you're not moving it on.
No,
Timber.
no.
Timber seems to keep playing despite Ben White being available. Wouldn't be concerned about that. I guess it's worth noting, obviously, they've got the Champions League quarterfinal with Real Madrid either side of the 32 game with Brentford. And therefore, that might be the point where you go, I want to dip off this. And the Ipswich game, very importantly, game week 33, is obviously 3 days, it's 4 days, sorry, it's on the Sunday, 4 days after the Real Madrid second leg. Now, just by virtue of playing Ipswich, could you get some rotation there for the likes of Timber? Yeah, but I wouldn't be concerned for Gabriel. I think Saka will be integrated back in after the break. And it might be that quite quickly we're in a scenario where, let's just say hypothetically, Palmer's ruled out for 3, 4 weeks, and you go, where am I spending this money?
Yep.
And he's back.
Yeah,
It's a possibility.
I'm kind of waiting for him to come back before I make any decision around him. But I've got like one in the back of my mind the thoughts around what if Saka does come back? Would he become interesting?
Chelsea, do not be surprised if they keep clean sheets in the next two home games. It's
You're going to be
Tottenham,
playing. You're going to
Tottenham and
be
Ipswich.
playing Levi Colwill then.
No, at the moment, no. That's what I land fine for game week 30. I mean, you tell me which one would I pick him over? Gabriel against Fulham,
No,
Vardio against Leicester.
no, no chance.
What are you thinking about?
No chance.
Kirkes against Ipswich.
No chance.
Right. So at the
No
moment,
chance.
that's my first backup. Right. So that alone is not the sort of thing that's going to put me in a position to play hits in 30 because I would be more than comfortable playing Levi Colwill against my team in game week 30 because it feels like we have lost so many away games to nil this season. Segue.
Fulham 2, Tottenham nil. I mean, some people, if you look at it, we talk about sometimes looking at games on stats versus the reality. Both of you had very similar XG, 0.97 to 0.95. Both of you had two big chances. They had 13 shots. You had 12 shots. They did have more of the game in terms of possession. But from an attacking output point of view, very similar. You were there, James, enjoying West London. Did they deserve to win 2-0?
Nice sunny day. Here's a remarkable stat. You won't believe this. That's the first time we've lost away from home in the league this season by more than a goal.
By more than a goal. Wow, okay. Makes all those trips worth it. Makes all those trips around the country worth it because you only
Oh,
ever see them lose just a little bit.
yeah. Well, 4-0 at Liverpool is still haunting in that cup semi-final.
Yeah, I think the fact that I mean, there's all sorts of damning stats and issues with this, which we can talk about in Tottenham in the week as well. But when you get to the point where you've lost more than half your games, it's frustrating. Like, I think
But
from a fan's point of view, 15 out of 29 games.
But firstly, let me give Fulham their flowers. Right, good side, played fine. Congratulate.
We expected them to win, so we shouldn't be surprised. And like,
But actually, a draw would have been a fair result. It
okay,
was a very even game. We started well. Our press was really good in the first 15 minutes or so. And then, if I can break the game into four quarters, the second quarter, i.e., the second half of the first half, Fulham were a better side and had some good opportunities. Castagna actually really should have scored with a good chance that he had. But then in the third quarter, we were much the better team in the start of the second half. Solanke missed an incredible chance at 0-0. Should put us 1-0 up. And then we lose the ball on a turnover. Odebear's just come on the pitch. The hero from Thursday, he's just come on the pitch, loses possessions, not got enough help from his teammates. They go and score. Beautiful little finish from Muniz. And then Sessegnon scores an absolute weldy of a second goal, showing more physicality in that one moment than he showed in about 4 years with Tottenham, by the way. But it was a brilliant finish. And it's nice to see him. Well, that wasn't nice to see him score against my team. It's nice to see him playing football because he has had terrible injury issues. But yeah, draw would have been a fair result, Suj. And ultimately, it's hyperbole, right? When we lose games, Tottenham lost 15 games. Of course, it's shit. But listen to me. I don't care if we win 5 games in Europa and if we finish this league season on 24 league defeats. I don't care.
yeah,
But it's
I understand
difficult
that.
to be critical. If Tottenham finish this season on 24 league defeats, they won't get relegated. We've got enough points. We could lose every league game left. If we win the Europa League season, arguably, it's difficult to say success, but no one's going to care if I come back from Spain with a trophy. Now, the way we're playing, there is no realistic proposition at the moment of us coming back from Spain with that trophy. But ultimately, that's the season. And I'm watching Match of the Day last night, and I actually think Wayne Rooney's quite good as an analysis. I'm thinking you've listened to the hyperbole of the reaction of Ange changing his team on Sunday. Ange picked yesterday, despite 7 changes, he picked an even stronger team than I'd have picked because I wouldn't have started Solanke yesterday. I'd have had him up in cotton wool because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so, for those asking me, and I have had questions even yesterday about Tottenham assets, and I know why the questions are coming because, look what's in game week 31, Suj. Southampton at home. Right.
When are the European games? Are they either side of Southampton
So more
or?
importantly, we play Chelsea on the Thursday, which for both Chelsea and Tottenham is a bizarre decision from the Premier League because that game should have been on the Tuesday night. But by virtue of that, Tottenham play Southampton on the Sunday, 3 days after Chelsea. Then the first leg against Frankfurt is on the Thursday. Gee whiz, I wonder which game Tottenham might rotate for.
Yeah,
We're going to pick a strong
yeah,
team at Chelsea
yeah,
in
yeah,
game week
yeah.
30, right? And then after that, it's a judgment about recovery. Likes of Mickey van der Ven are not going to play Southampton in game week 31. Now, you wouldn't be picking it up for fancy anyway. But if you're like, which fullback's going to play against Southampton? God knows. This week, all I could tell you going into the Fulham game was that Udogie would play. Now, you didn't want to buy Udogie, right? So then it's, Porro or Spence. It was obvious one of them was going to miss out. And it's probably going to be the same because Spence at the moment's ahead of Udogie now,
I,
genuinely. So those two, Porro and Spence, will probably play at Chelsea. Then Udogie will play against Southampton for one of the other two. Right. Good luck with that. Attacking wise, you've just seen full scale changes again.
yep.
The most important player to Tottenham right now at the moment is Lucas Bergvall. He's going to play regularly. But the most important games are the Thursdays. You're like, oh my God, I've got a 4.4 million asset. I can't tell you if he's going to play in the league. Solanke's going to play the majority of the games. There are 7 or 8 better forwards to buy than Dominic Solanke in FPL at the moment. This punting, Son, Tell, Odebear, whatever you fancy, Madison, to tell you now which one's going to play against Southampton. I can give you a good idea, for game week 31. And I guess there will be people who will wildcard in 31 going, well, actually, I want to take a 1 week punt on a Tottenham player to then sell for something else in 32.
Yeah, Eze or Gordon or whatever. Yeah,
But then I even think, like, let's say you want to go, oh, right, Madison didn't start at Chelsea. Let's just do that hypothetically. And you go, right, so Madison can play against Southampton. That's quite good. But why wouldn't you just go Gordon against Leicester anyway?
yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
There's no reason. There's no reason to be looking at Tottenham whatsoever. The only player I can tell you is going to play the games at the moment is Vicario. Right? Surely you don't want to do that.
No, agreed.
So, from a fantasy perspective, there's no reason to buy any Tottenham players at all. In terms of the hyperbole of the overreaction from yesterday, let me tell you, I was in the away end and at 0-0, the support was fine. They were playing okay. The game was really even. And as soon as Fulham scored, everyone throws their fucking toys out the pram because people need something to blame. But the performance yesterday, although there was a lot of sloppiness in possession, it was a very even game against a very competent opponent. It wasn't that bad. There were things that happened afterwards which are not helpful, like Ange responding to a fan again. Stop being a dickhead, please. But Matthias Tell going and speaking to the fans afterwards quite nice. There's a guy on loans who's obviously buying into what's happening, trying to explain himself. It's quite interesting. Ultimately, we lost away to a team that is better than us at the moment, whether people like it or not, in a very even football match. That's it.
Okie dokie.
If you've got Fulham assets, truthfully, despite the prospect of doubling in 33, I think it's a bin. You're going to hold Jimenez through like Arsenal, Liverpool, Bournemouth when there are
No.
so many other good players with really good fixtures in between.
Castagnier for you, you're going to just bench it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And if I get lucky,
Robinson's all right, but
do you want to start Robinson in his fixtures coming up?
if I owned him, I wouldn't. No.
I completely get if you've got value in a Robinson or a Castagne or something like that and you want to hold because there's the prospect of double in 33, do so. You may also be in a position where you need the player for 34 if they don't double, subject to what your chit strategy. But realistically, I think these guys are getting benched. And on Jimenez as well, I thought he played really well yesterday. What he was doing really nice, he was dropping into right half space channels, trying to draw Davis to come out and press. And Davis did that a lot with him. And then he was linking nice from there. I thought Raul Jimenez played really well. When Romero went off, which is obviously planned, right? He's played the whole game Thursday, 60 odd minutes here. At the point he went off, we were in control of the football match. Archie Gray then went back to centre back. Archie had played in the sixth position. He did fine. We need to see him there more. Goes back to centre back, and then Muniz come on. Oh my God, Muniz was so powerful. Proper handful.
To maybe
Really, really was.
avoid that rotation and
Jimenez
Muniz.
played fine. Nothing wrong with Jimenez's performance at all. I'm just saying Muniz came on and it was like a different animal of bullying straight away. He was really good when he came on, Rodrigo Muniz. It's not the first time I've seen him live. I've been really, really impressed with him. So just feel like in any game anyway, coming up, and considering they're still in the cup, Jimenez could play against Palace and then Muniz might play at Arsenal, for example. Like, it could be that. So I think if you've got either of them, you've definitely got eyes to move on. If you did have the likes of Smith Rowe or something, I think it was pretty quiet yesterday. You're looking to move that on. To be honest, their biggest threat yesterday on the ball was Willian, who'd made his first start since he came back. You're not going to invest in any of that. I think Fulham now, in terms of investment, will be a conversation back in 33 or 34 whenever it comes round. They are in contention for Europe. It was a big win for them. And there's that. The game matters for them. It don't matter for us. Calm down, everyone.
Let's talk about Leicester 3, Manchester United 0, James.
Leicester. Christ on a stick.
You didn't hear what I said.
What did you say?
Leicester 3, Manchester United 0.
Did you? I presumed it was a slip of the tongue.
That was the big chances in the game, James. Would you believe it? Leicester racked up 3, Manchester United racked up none. Like, looking at those stats and the game, I was like, I spent the entire second half waiting for Onana's clean sheet to be destroyed.
And it still nearly went right at the end, didn't it? Vardy should have scored right at the end.
Man United obviously were winning and as a result in a bit of control, but I never felt until the final whistle was when I could look at Onana's clean sheet and say, yes, it's there in the bag, because I just didn't feel like, and particularly obviously Heaven, unfortunately the injury, you don't want to see a young player get injured like that.
No, and he was playing really well as well.
He has been, I think all of the comments online were like, he's just broken in and he's doing so well. You don't want to see that injury. But when you look at it on big chances, the score should have been the other way. But Leicester don't score again. And that's just the story of it. Target clean sheets against Leicester for now and the rest of the season.
So they haven't scored. They've lost. Is it 7 consecutive home games without scoring? They've lost and conceded at least 2 of them. Still, their next home fixture is Newcastle, and then the one after that's Liverpool. So, yeah. But they finished the same with Everton. Their last 2 home games are Southampton and Ipswich.
They're all, what are they going to do? A relegation party amongst each other or what?
For those who are wondering, oh my God, I'm going to have a Leif Davis, Mikalenko rotation. No, they are the same weeks, game weeks 35 and 37, just flip. So one or the other. And you'd choose Everton over Leicester if you were looking at that sort of thing, wouldn't you? No doubt about it.
Yeah, you wouldn't. There's no circumstance in which you choose Leicester right now. There's no circumstance in which you choose Leicester. You target Leicester. I'm sure Andy Martin tweeted yesterday, and I don't know.
That's unusual for Andy to tweet.
I don't know if it was a tongue-in-cheek tweet or actually.
What, from Andy? I imagine so.
No, he said that 50% of his transfers this season have been targeting Leicester.
That's
50,
that's
50%,
great.
50% of the players he's bought is the week that they play Leicester, which, if it's true, and even if it's close to that, is like incredible to be targeted a team like this. I'm actually actively looking at it. That's why I want to get Haaland this week. If I don't want to break the team by losing Palmer, I'll just go Marmoush instead. But it's City on radar this week for me, attacking City anyway.
The problem is, and this is awful for the bit at the end, with Leicester playing Southampton and Ipswich in 35 and 37, who are you buying to target these teams against each other?
By then it'll be, I don't know. Yeah.
Look, they weren't terrible. They did create some chances. They are clearly hugely suffering with confidence. They've changed the system recently and were better defensively at Chelsea and losing 1-0. Ultimately, 3-0 from this is pretty harsh, right? Decided by a couple of key moments. The first one, Rasmus Højlund takes the goal really well. And I'm pleased for him because I quite like him, actually. I do think in there is a player suffering with confidence who has the right attributes to be a good forward. I don't think it will be with Manchester United. I think it will be a different team somewhere else in the future. He takes the goal really well, but I was watching the game live and I must have said out loud 5 times, close him down, close him down, close him down. That defending from Wout Fass is so bizarre. At which point, the only thing I can think he thinks is he's on his right foot, he's got no confidence, I'll let him go. But ultimately, in this league, if you give a forward a good chance, you will get punished.
Yep.
All he has to do is run in a diagonal line across him. Hoyland don't even get into the penalty area. Never mind get the shot away. It's utterly bizarre. I speak about him a lot. He would, if I had to play with him, I wouldn't sleep. I couldn't think as a worse centre back to have as a partner. And he's played top level for Belgium and stuff. His concentration and his decision making is horrendous. He's so bad. And that's not helpful for those who play with him. Even though you've got a player like Connor Cody, who's very experienced, obviously playing inside of him in this back three. So that don't help. The second goal, it's questionable whether it's a Bruno assist, which was ironic because it was nearly the same position on the pitch with the controversial Johan Wissel one from a couple of weeks ago. I don't own Bruno. I don't care. Ultimately, like with the Wissel one, the decision is made by Opta, yes or no. FPL will follow that line. Opta's obviously given it to Bruno. And then Bruno takes the third goal absolutely brilliantly. They're just very, very, very ordinary, Leicester. Very ordinary. It's not going to matter what system they play. They are going to continue to get beat in the next 3 or 4 games. I'm certain of that. City, Newcastle, Brighton, Liverpool, they ain't getting nothing against any of them teams. For United, good result. Nice for them to have a positive mood with what's coming next. And for those who gambled Bruno Fernandes, whether it was to buy or obviously like yourself on a free hit, very well done. Massive haul, especially if you captained. Really well done. However, I will stand by my point what I said going into this game week, that I think you will begin to have eyes already looking at something else. Forest away, City at home, Newcastle away.
Tough.
And then possible single fixture, we don't know yet. This is reliant on Bournemouth beating Man City in the Cup. But then possible single game week fixture in the double. So I think your eyes are already looking elsewhere. So obviously yesterday the news comes out about Palmer. I ain't chasing Bruno Fernandes. Well done. He's got his haul against Leicester.
Agreed.
Even though it's like, and this is a mistake I think people will make. Well, I can afford Bruno. Saka's not fit yet. I'll just go Bruno. But we're steaming into Nottingham Forest away. This is what we're doing. When we've got the likes of Eze playing Southampton or Gordon's. Exactly what I've just said to you. Eze 30, Gordon 31.
Yeah, priority for me is Newcastle and Palace.
I'd rather chain that. I'd rather get Eze against Southampton. He got injured and I have to go Gordon now. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with Fernandes as a player or an asset. I'm just saying for those not on yet, I wouldn't be chasing it. For those who are on, and particularly with the Palmer situation, if you kept that route, then you're obviously going to hold on. And it's not to suggest that those on should definitively sell. But ultimately, he still ended up playing the majority of this game in a deeper position. The first goal was a lovely through ball, but it should get cut out. And then Fass completely cocks it up. The second goal is questionable whether he touches it or not. The third goal, he scores a magnificent goal when he's moved into a higher position later in the game. The chances are against Nottingham Forest in game week 30, he will go into a central midfield position. And because they are very strong defensively, you are very much reliant on individual absolute brilliance from set plays, shots from distance. And he's probably the best long range shooter in the league, I guess. Yeah, that's what he's just done in the last 2 games, isn't it? Scored 2 goals from what a combined distance of, 40 yards, 45 yards. So I won't be chasing that. And I certainly wouldn't be chasing any other Manchester United player with them fixtures coming up. But good victory for them. And the feel good around the club will feel a bit better, especially even more so because of the victory against Sociedad in the Europa.
Yeah, I'm not looking at Manchester United either defensively or anything attacking. It'll be there plenty of other options to go. That's a wrap of the games, James. Do we want to cover off some of the questions that we've had in on the internet?
Go on.
Do you want to do the schedule first? We mentioned COTC already.
So fan view tomorrow, Simon Bibby, talking Newcastle. I suspect he's going to turn up with cans.
Yeah, I was going to
We're
say,
gonna.
is he going to be sober? It doesn't matter if he's not, really,
He can.
to
I
be
don't
honest.
mind if he wants to turn up
Yeah.
drunk. It will make some different content. I won't be bringing cans. It's not my team. But yeah, I messaged Sai after the victory because I just felt it was so big for them that it should be covered to get the fan view on it. That's Tuesday. Clayton and James Wednesday has said we'll include kind of picking up Wham with Liverpool on that podcast as well, amongst some other things as usual. COTC Thursdays, Brighton versus Villa with Sam Murray and Lee Jackson. Friday, Ask James. This time it is scheduled for around about 12 o'clock. Apologies. I did realise that I actually put 12 p.m. in the schedule last week, despite always intending 2 o'clock. It is scheduled for 12 o'clock this coming Friday. If you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/Planet FPL, which includes more Manchester United chat on money and football this week, and also more Newcastle Carabao Cup victory feedback. I'm going to be having a deeper dive into the final one, talking tactics this week as well.
Good, good, good. James, we've got a few questions in on Twitter. What's the current possibility of a double game week 36 at the moment? Maybe for those thinking about holding back a chip for then. Any thoughts around that? Anything changed? Still unlikely?
Well, currently projected, because the bookmakers will have Tottenham projected to get to the Europa League final, and the bookmakers will have Aston Villa currently projected to get to the FA Cup final. And if Tottenham get to the Europa League semi-final, it doesn't even have to be the final. If Tottenham beat Frankfurt and if Villa beat Preston and then win their semi-final, that fixture has to be played in 36.
Right.
Has to. Has to. There's no way around it. Tottenham don't even need to make the final. You can't wait for 6 days' notice to wait. You have to bring it forward. It will be on the Wednesday night in game week 36 under that basis. So, but that's also relying on Tottenham beating Frankfurt, and I don't think we will. Like, the bookies have got us as slight favourites, but I'm not convinced. That said, I've had a look at Frankfurt's form, and that's a little bit indifferent at the moment. So, like, we're capable, aren't we? Villa, you would imagine, beat Preston, and then unless they draw City, I think they'll be favourites in the semi-final.
No, yeah, yeah, I would say so. I agree with you. But I
Most
think what,
likely, it's also with betting odds factor in whoever Villa play. If it's not City, Villa are a bigger club than anyone else they play. That's not meant disrespectfully to anybody else. They are. They're Champions League quarterfinalists as well, right? So we know Villa. If Villa's indifferences this year, a lot have been in away games, right? And Unai Emery, by the way, knows how to win big cup games. That's been proven historically, except when he was at Arsenal. Shame. So Villa would be favourites if they played anyone other than City in the semi-final. So it's a possibility.
I think Bournemouth will beat City, mind.
So do I,
Yeah.
actually. So do I. Although I'm a little less confident in that, having watched Bournemouth at the weekend. But I just think Brentford are so good in terms of the way they set up pound for pound. You know what's beautiful about Brentford? I think they're one of the best pressing teams in the league. And yet within a minute or so, they can feel like they're in a low block. So they press you high, but if it
Yep.
doesn't work, then you're like, oh, it's a struggle to break them down. So I think people have a perception of them like, oh, they're just a low block team. Brentford are a really good pressing team. They get the balance from a high press to then going low within seconds really well. You don't see them get caught out too much. Ultimately, the answer is I don't know. I think it's 50-50 whether you'll get doubles in 36 or not. You are reliant, first and foremost, on Tottenham beating Frankfurt. Well, actually, before that, you're reliant on Villa beating Preston. Then you're reliant on Tottenham beating Frankfurt. Then you're reliant on Villa winning an FA Cup semi-final. If those three things happen, you will get a double in 36 with Villa Tottenham. By the way, quite what you'd want from those two teams in the event that Tottenham had Europa League semi-final
Yeah, yeah.
second leg Thursday, Palace Sunday, and then Villa Wednesday. And in Villa's case, it would be Bournemouth Saturday, Tottenham Wednesday, FA Cup final Saturday. I don't know what you want from it anyway.
Yeah. I'm planning around there not being anything in 36 in terms of chip usage and what have you.
Now, for
Yeah,
manager, maybe more of interest, right?
maybe.
I
Maybe.
get it, the extra fixture for the Arsenal and stuff like that. But for bench boost, what I would add is on bench boost, I would be trying to get rid of that by game week 33. If you have to make a decision, I think, to hold back one of the arse man or the bench boost, I think hold back the arse man. Even though it's more powerful than the bench boost, ultimately, when you want to use a bench boost, will have a deciding factor, right? And it might be, oh, it's only 15, 20 points out the bench boost if you use it in 33 or 32 or something. It might be a complete flush if you wait till the end. At least with the arse man, no matter what, there will be something you can attack at the end. Even if it's just Vissel Pereira, Brighton and Brentford at home, 36, 38. There will be something that you can attack at the end, even if it is just 3 fixtures. Whereas with a bench boost, it might feel like hell.
Yeah, agree. Good, good. Anything on Blue Sky, James?
Jonah 204 says, talk about the pitfalls of over planning and removing good options as you build towards a certain game week. 29 in this case. Removed Visser and Watkins recently in favour of better options on paper, but got stung by them the following week, trying to be too clever, getting ahead of the curve. No, not necessarily. I mean, it depends what you bought as well. But I think we all do that, right? Ultimately, if you've got a player that's got 2 fixtures and another player that's got 1 fixture, or in the case of Visser, still fixtures, but rough fixtures, right? It's Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal next. Take me with a hit, right? The 3 players I've bought have now got Ipswich at home and Leicester at home, respectively, even though the hit's not paid now. If it wasn't a hit now, it was going to be a hit this week, right?
Yeah,
Still buying these players in.
Sometimes you will take out a good player with an average fixture for an average player with a good fixture. I'm thinking about, like, if people have targeted Wolves or something now because they had Southampton. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. As a general rule, I always prefer the good player with an average fixture over the average player from an average team with a good fixture, because you can rely on it more long term, and there doesn't come that point where you're like, right, I need to get this crap out of my team. So maybe with that in mind, I always think, would I rather the player from the better team, even if the fixture is a little bit more difficult, just because they're more reliable, they play with better players. I get that.
Let's use a different example, right? Because a lot of us experienced this early in the season. Boomer. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of people have held nearly all
Yeah.
season, right? He
Yeah.
came into a really, really difficult run of fixtures. I wouldn't say he was spectacular over that period, other than 1 game against Newcastle. But he ticked over nicely, right? And the others that people went to maybe didn't do as well as hoped. But it comes back round again now, where Brentford have got a really tough run of fixtures. It's up to you. If you keep a player that's that good, of course he could continue to return. But we've also seen the flip of it. Palmer has gone a number of weeks without returning, and yet, people say, oh, blank, blank, blank. I mean, against Southampton and Leicester, he should have hauled in both the games, right? He's missed a penalty against Leicester. He's missed 2 massive chances against Southampton. Different time, we're looking at, I don't know, 25 points across the 2 weeks or something, right? So the ultimate thing is here, don't necessarily be impacted by the outcome. Other than Joran Visser getting up to score a header from a corner, which could have been scored by any player from a set play, although I get that he's the target, he was quite quiet on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't hate the process. You can hate the outcome, but if you're happy with your decision process, I wouldn't stress about it too much.
Good, good. James, that's a wrap on the questions. That's a wrap on the games. Everybody put your feet up now, because you've got plenty of time before the next deadline, and we got plenty of content coming at you thick and fast. If you want to support the show, where do they go, James?
www.patreon.com/Planet FPL. Please help me keep the lights on.
Keep the lights on and keep the show going. You get additional content. You get the Slack community. You get the prize leagues. You get the fixture planning spreadsheet, and a whole bunch of other stuff as well. So yeah, patreon.com/Planet F if you want to support the show. Other than that, though, just leave us a nice review or subscribe wherever you're listening. That all helps as well. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Play it your way. Cue music, please. Man child.